Hey everybody, hope you're doing okay. Um, I am going to speak quickly about composition and landscape. Um, this will be for your next assignment that's due next week, which you will need 24 images that are both portraits and landscape images. And I've already gone kind of in depth and detail about in another video about what an environmental portrait is and what's expected of you for that. In this one, I'm going to kind of piggyback on kind of what I think compositional elements are in photography, and that will coincide with the other video that I've posted from YouTube that I think is pretty good about kind of do's and don'ts. But yeah, this is just kind of going over design elements and how to make a decent image when photographing. So here are some elements and some principles, just kind of design in general. So thinking about line, shape, mass, volume, space, value, color, texture, time and motion. Or some elements and principles are kind of this balance of the image. What's the rhythm of the image? Is there repetition, unity, variety, size, scale, and proportion? And what is your emphasis and focal point within the frame? So that's just some basic things and kind of elements and principles of design. So here are kind of the main compositional guidelines I have based on these ideas of design. The first, which a lot of people already know about, is the rule of thirds. I think that one video points out some good things about it, though. The rule of thirds can, if you don't necessarily make it well balanced, it can, one side of your image might be more empty than the other. It doesn't always work out. These are just, and this goes for any of them, they're just general guidelines for composing an image within your frame. So rule of thirds is one we'll go over. The use of diagonals or leading lines, and then symmetry. And this is also something to keep in mind with all of these when we're going over them, is directional space. Where is my eye being led towards? What are we looking at within the frame? Where is your horizon line? Meaning, is it more top heavy? Is it more bottom heavy? Is it more in the middle? Where in the frame is your horizon that you've created? It's not necessarily a literal one. And then visual weight and balance. Is there balance within the whole frame? Like right now, there's a lot of stuff happening on this side, if you can see me, and there's not as much happening right here. If I move over to this area, there's kind of more balance within the frame, right? What is your point of emphasis? Is it a person? Is it what is your subject? How do you emphasize the subject? And also thinking about all of the edges filling in your frame. You want every aspect of your frame to be well composed and not devoid or empty of something. And if it is devoid of something, then it needs to be a part of balance. You know, this all kind of feeds into the same thing. So yeah. All right, the rule of thirds. So this is the idea that you have a grid into 9 squares or rectangles, and you place your subject on the intersections of those grids. So on the thirds, essentially. So the first third and the third third, right? You place them within that intersection of line that's somehow pleasing to the eye. And we're going to look at some images that utilize this. All of these diagonals, there's an intersection, there's like a leading line to your main subject. Leading lines are kind of the same idea. You might have multiple kind of things that are leading you to point your anchor point within your image. And then symmetry is you putting your subject right in the middle. Some people say not to do that or not to do it often. I think it's fine, and it's one of the easier things that you can do when you're starting out, is just plop them in the middle. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so that's just some basic stuff. And yeah, we're just going to go over some images real quick that utilize this type of thing. If we were in the classroom, I'd ask you, what does this utilize? So this is my friend Zach, who took an image of some unicorns. Symmetry is being utilized in this image. Here's another image by the photographer Jeff Rich. What's happening here? Diagonal and leading lines. So you have this pipe and then kind of also the embankment there kind of meeting into the middle. And it's the people in the middle also are kind of the anchor point for this cleanup that's happening in the stream. So here's an image by Nan Golden. So we're having rule of thirds happen over here. We have two subjects, the gaze of one, this remote and woman and her foot. That's being split up into the thirds. And then we also have kind of this gaze plus the remote being kind of a diagonal and leading the viewer to the gaze and to what's happening in the frame. Here's another image by William Eggleston, and utilizing symmetry with high hair right there. My friend Melissa, what's happening in this? Leading lines. So we have multiple things that are happening right here that are bringing us to our central subject, which is this dog. And it's kind of symmetrical in a way, but we're utilizing the truck and also these buildings in the background and even the power lines to kind of bring you to your central subject, which is the dog. Here's an image by Bruce Davidson from his Subway series. We have symmetry happening. We have the individual lined up right in the middle. We also have leading lines from the pole and the railroad tracks. So yeah, leading us all to kind of, and we also have a horizon line in the background. It's a 1 point horizon that's going back, and her head just happens to be there. So yeah. I don't know. Here's a image by Zach again. And this is utilizing rule of thirds. Image by William Eggleston, leading lines. So we have the power lines going to the bulb as a means of bringing us to the main part of the image, which is the light bulb. Another Eggleston image, which is using diagonals and leading lines from the street. Even a third. I would even consider this a rule of thirds. Well balanced rule of thirds too, because we have kind of something that's happening that's filling in the whole frame, right? Henri Cartier-Bresson image, rule of thirds happening here. You can even say that there's maybe some leading lines happening with railroad tracks, or even with this railing right here leading us to this couple. Melissa again, yeah, having rule of thirds within this image. And the more you kind of just look at images and also start, taking photographs yourself, you're just going to start seeing this naturally all the time. Rule of thirds happening in this Robert Frank image, the two chairs being kind of the main focal point. Bruce Davidson again, diagonal symmetry happening with the couple here. And here's another Jeff Rich image where we have rule of thirds. We have this is in 1/3, this is in another third, and then we have kind of leading lines here of the water line and the tree line, and even the smoke leading us to our main focal point, which is this factory. So yeah, that's there you go. That's some compositional elements. Like the other video says, points out some other things of kind of like positioning yourself and access, and not necessarily having to follow these to a strict T, but it's a good way just to, when you start taking images, to do this in general. And yeah, if you have any questions about that, just let me know. But think about this when you're taking images. Be intentional with your framing and your composition. Why, if you are tilting it in a strange angle of view, what is the reason you're doing that? Is there something that will add to the content of the image by doing something that's unconventional? If just being aware and being intentional with your compositions, already that's the best thing you can do to make better images. Is just thinking about these elements of design, and these compositional elements will improve your eye and will also improve people's response to your images as well. These are just kind of psychological things that we do as well when viewing photographs. Or if you watch a movie, you're gonna tell if somebody is doing it badly because you've watched enough films probably in your life, and you're going to see it's like, why is this film so bad? And it might be because of the cinematography that's happening. These people are trained in kind of these methods of kind of controlling what happens within the frame, where it seems natural and engaging and keeps you up with the narrative. These are just a movie versus a single image. It's a lot harder to convey so much in one image than it is sometimes in a whole feature-length film. So just keep these in mind and watch that other video on composition, and I think you'll be good to go on your first assignment. So this is for another course, but I'll go over kind of what I expect from you. So this is landscape. You're doing landscapes and portraits. So I'm expecting you to implement basic composition strategies to create visually striking images. So using rule of thirds, how you frame the image, what are the leading lines, using symmetry, using diagonals, like thinking about all of that when you're taking your landscape images and then you're taking your portraits. So let's ask the question real quick: what is a landscape photograph? So think of it as a still life where the focal point is not a human. and the image is made outdoors in natural light. Traditionally has been interpreted as a scene of nature, or potentially wildlife, devoid of any human presence, but human-made structures such as architecture can be elements within your image. I would like you to explore just natural imagery as well as I call it kind of urban landscapes or architectural landscapes. Just don't have people in it. This is purely still imagery, devoid of human life. Possibly wildlife, but I really want you to be looking at form. I really want you to be looking at subject matter and starting off with this before you get into portraits, especially. So here's some examples. This is kind of, we don't have vistas like this in Kentucky, even though we have some, beautiful places to hike and stuff in the Appalachian Mountains. But yeah, this is over in California in Yosemite. This was an image taken by Ansel Adams. Beautiful, striking, utilizing all the elements within this image. Dynamic, a lot of things happening, almost looks otherworldly. Am I expecting you to get that kind of shot? No, but aspire to it. Look at these type of images and be like, man, can I nail something like that? I'm going to suggest that you do closer things. Vistas tend to be harder, and your camera is not going to be getting as much detail as this image, because this was used, if you've watched the Camera Mechanics video, Ansel Adams used an 8x10 view camera, which created a very large negative, 8x10 inches. And you just have an incredible resolution with that type of film, whereas you can't get that with a DSLR. So think about getting closer in. This is some leaves. Imogene Cunningham took this photograph, and it's striking. A landscape doesn't have to be from far away. It can be close. Think of it as a still life. I mean, these are just some really incredible leaves, and yeah, visually striking, interesting, different, kind of catches you off at first. You don't really know what you're looking at, then you realize, oh, I'm looking behind the leaves and looking at the shadows that it's casting across the wall. And yeah, then it becomes like all different types of shapes and forms, and it's an interesting photograph. Said don't use people, but if they're very tiny, this is kind of using an image for scale. This is by Margaret Bourke-White. It's the first image that was on Life magazine, if you're familiar with it, that came out in the 30s. And it's of a newly created dam out in Montana. And yeah, these forms are just kind of interesting. And then you have, you're utilizing human beings kind of for scale, but even if you didn't have them in there, you could still see kind of the magnitude of, how large the structure is, etc. Interesting image of Monument Valley by Len Gensel and Diane Cook, who are a married couple that photograph together and make fascinating imagery. So kind of showing the car here on the right, and then just not your typical. This is kind of showing your not typical landscape. A lot of people would just focus on the rock formations. Here we're utilizing kind of like the parking lot and the car as kind of a way to fill in the frame and show a different, you know, non-stereotypical view of um, something that's been photographed many, many times, and has become kind of a form of iconography. So what I would urge you to do is we all kind of pre-visualize, you know, let me go back, this idea of what a landscape is, Ansel Adams, right? Um, or we have an idea of what a picture of a flower is, what a picture of a mountain or a vista looks like. We have all these preconceptions. Break that up. And I think that's what's happening here with the Lynn Jensel and Diane Cook image is Monument Valley has been photographed, filmed so many different times, and they're kind of adding a new interpretation of it. Not the same old kind of trope that's been utilized over and over. And that's what I'll challenge you to do is take a photograph of something that and maybe everybody has seen from where you're from, where you live. So if you're I live in Eastern Kentucky, so I'm in Harlan, and there's certain things here that have been photographed 1,000 times. And how do you break up the monotony, right? This is an image by Alex Soth of kind of a area next to the Mississippi River, and yeah, I mean, kind of showing, it's a dark image, and it's kind of showing kind of not the best stuff, but it's also, there's kind of beauty in it as well. But it's an interesting still life, and having the flag there with someone's party spot, you know, and yeah, it's an interesting image. This is an example of kind of, let's utilize the entire frame. This is by Stephen Shore. Every single aspect of this image is being utilized in some way, and it's fascinating. Your eye kind of just wanders, and it's really the green, I think, that really attracts the eye, especially, and even the orange, kind of like my eye kind of goes right here. This is one thing you should know, is that the brightest point of your image is, so these whites right here, that's where your eye's going to go first in any photograph. But then you start scanning everything, and it becomes a captivating image. So an example, this is a good example of like utilizing every aspect of the frame in kind of a really smart way. Again, same idea. So Mike Smith here, utilizing kind of diagonals and horizon line even up here, and shapes, everything. It's kind of a weird image, but you know, he took this in East Tennessee, and he even had this leading line of the road. Everything's kind of intersecting in an interesting way. Even if we look at some of this livestock, it's kind of, we have a animal on some rocks, and then you have kind of this cow contorting to eat, and a couple on the ground, and yeah, it just, everything in this frame is being utilized in a coherent and interesting way. Here's an image by William Christenberry. This was taken in Hale County, Alabama, and right here, just, you know, kind of symmetry, dead center. But it's we're thinking here about subject matter, and I think that's, if you're going to use symmetry in a compelling way, I think the subject matter has to be kind of on point. So yeah. Image by Joel Meyerowitz. I have leading lines. Thinking about color. How does color and black and white kind of, are we thinking about color more in this image probably versus the Ansel Adams image of Yosemite Valley, where you're thinking more about forms and kind of the shapes and things that are happening, whereas we're thinking a little bit more about color and this kind of almost monochromatic thing that's happening with this blue, and then the breakup of the green here and here. This woman's hat. Yeah. Image by Lee Friedlander. Again, kind of just interesting use of space. A lot of things happening in this image. Again, black and white, we're thinking about form a lot more and shape of the imagery. Again, kind of unexpected ways of taking photographs. And here we have kind of more of a quiet, more poetic image by Todd Hido, and just kind of road going down, and then kind of water on the. He took this image out of inside of his car, and he would wait for water to kind of wash over his window before he'd take an image, and it would kind of create this blurring effect. So yeah, kind of this almost painterly looking image of some power lines and a fence and the sky and the road kind of leading, all of this kind of leading towards the horizon that's back here, right? So we have a very minimalist landscape image here by Hiroshi Sugimoto. So we have the horizon line, and then kind of the sky here, and then the water. It's very, if you know who Mark Rothko is, the painter, very modern, minimalist, painterly looking, doesn't quite look real, but yeah, just thinking about the landscape and kind of very minimalist detail versus this chaotic kind of detail that we see in some of these other images. So just like finding the most basic thing and it becoming almost something else other than water and sky, right? And then we have a very beautiful image by Sam Abel, and utilizing the canoe as kind of your central kind of symmetrical point, and then the reflection in the water as kind of a way to frame around this canoe as well. Wow. Okay. Here's an image by Richard Mishrash. Yeah, just the river itself kind of being your leading line to the horizon back here. Very just beautiful image. Yeah. Thinking about light, time of day is going to be important when going out and taking landscapes as well. I think early morning to late afternoon would be your kind of your best bet. You're thinking about the sun also and how it's going to affect your shot. If it's right above you, it's not going to be the best. Try not to shoot right into the sun either. Try to let the sun either be at the back of you is generally the best bet. So yeah, thinking about light, thinking about color, thinking about form, thinking about composition, all of these things kind of have to go through your head when you're taking these images. Here's a nice image by Mitch Epstein, kind of early morning fog with this tree in the city. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically what I'm challenging you to do, is to just go out and start taking imagery. Oh, I forgot about this one. Beautiful image by Sally Mann. Some kudzu going up a tree. she uses this old method of image taking called a tintype or wet collodion imagery, and it kind of becomes like this otherworldly, fairy kind of dreamlike space the way she photographs. So how did I skip all these? Um, Image by Paul Seawright. Yeah. Anyway, I think just looking at imagery is a great way for inspiration. This is the thing that I generally do is what compels me to go out and photograph is just it's in the journey and it's looking. So I'll get in my car and just go for a drive. And then if I see something, I'll pull over and kind of check it out and then photograph it. Or someone might have told me about a place and I might go there, or I might go on a hike. Talking to people is also another great way of doing this. So, yeah. I think the thing with photographing is that you need to have fun doing it and you need to be compelled by what other imagery is telling you that needs to, that is capturing your attention in some way. I think just going out and taking a picture of a flower, fine. If it compels you, cool. But how do you make that image different than every other flower image we've ever seen, right? Um, so that's kind of what this whole class is built on, is kind of showing you the basics of this, but also challenging you to go beyond what is the stereotype or what is the preconceived idea of a landscape image or a portrait, So yeah, that's all I gotta say. For next week, you will have 24 images due. I'd like kind of half and half, half be landscapes, half be portraits. If you have any questions, please email me. Yeah, so that's it for this little lecture. Appreciate it. Thank you.